Hey there, this is Phil. Welcome back to the show. I am here with Christian Taylor.
Hey, Phil Vischer.
Hi, Christian. How are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
You're wearing black.
Well, it's covered over my flowers.
You're wearing black.
Just a sweater.
Have you ever in your life worn black before?
No.
Well, you saw it right here. History in the making. Christian Taylor wears black on the podcast. Did a famous cub die?
I was cold.
You were cold. Okay.
Yeah,
and you wanted to absorb more solar energy. So you were outside.
Yes.
Okay. That's okay. And we do not have Sky Jitani. He is in Florida, but not at Disney World.
That's true.
Which to me is a wasted trip to Florida. I don't know what that's for. But we have Andy Crouch. Andy Crouch has been on the show, at least twice.
Myriad times where myriad equals one.
Yeah. More than one.
Maybe.
Twice, I think. Maybe. I could be wrong. I'm going to go with twice. Hey, it's a podcast, Celine here. Oh, no, that's not how it starts.
Nope.
Hey, it's a podcast. What do you know? Hey, it's a podcast. And we got video. Hey, it's a podcast. Celine here. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here. Oh, we won't talk to Sky because he's all gone. So I have to write him out of my happy little song. And write in Andy Crouch and Christian Taylor. Hey, it's a podcast. Celine here. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here.
That will make Sky happy. He likes being written out of anything having to do with the ukulele.
He just likes missing out on the ukulele. Andy's here. Andy is an author, speaker, musician, and dad whose work helps readers think about culture, creativity, and the gospel. His work has been featured in Time, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. He was executive editor of Christianity Today and is now senior strategist for communication at the John Templeton Foundation.
That's a lot.
Senior strategist for community. Are you in charge of spelling? What?
Talking?
No, spelling strategy.
Spelling
strategy.
Not
mere spelling, but actually thinking strategically is about spelling.
Like purposefully choosing to misspell certain words for strategic impact.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Have you used Kofifi yet?
Kofifi.
That was unstrategic spelling, I think.
Kofifi. I love it. What does that mean? What do you do at the John Templeton Foundation now?
I help us think about why we're communicating and what we're communicating. So that's the strategy part is, what should a charitable foundation say about itself?
What do we have to say?
And, unlike every other business, a foundation doesn't have customers in the usual way. So you don't have to communicate. So why are you communicating and what are you saying about yourself? That's my sort of daily preoccupation these days.
Fantastic. But then you write books in your spare time.
So yes, also... Yeah. Continuing to try to be helpful in other ways.
Okay, let's talk news, and then we'll transition into Andy's new book, which I think you'll like. It's a good one. Eugene Peterson had an interesting week. Who is Eugene Peterson? Andy, you can summarize this from your history of writing about Christians.
He was actually one of the most significant influences on me as a young adult.
Really?
His book, A Long Obedience in the Same Direction, was this beautiful, literate, powerful book about discipleship, which has shaped my life for 30 plus years now.
Wow. And many others, actually.
And many others, but he was not well known. Until he did something else. He wrote this series of beautiful, elegant, little, very demanding books, not demanding like hard to read, but demanding in terms of what they present about the Christian life.
Yeah.
And then he undertook this kind of translation, kind of interpretation of the Bible called The Message, which was this massive
Do we know why he decided to do that? What makes one think the world needs a new Bible that comes solely from me?
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
It's Eugene Peterson and Mark Taylor. That's...
Right.
Well, and was the Message after The Way, wasn't it? Or was it the same?
Yeah.
The Way.
Well,
is that another Bible?
You don't remember The Way?
No, that was the Living Bible. That was how the Living Bible was packaged at one point.
So was that before The Message?
But
they're similar.
Bible was early 70s when they put all that together, and The Message was 80s? Early 80s?
The message was probably in the 90s that it was completed at least.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it goes even further back to Good News for Modern Man. Was that Barclay who did that? There's this kind of history of very free interpretations of Scripture, of the whole Bible in English. And then the Living Bible was one. The Message comes along, is the biggest hit ever in that space. And I think that's what
Wait, are you saying it's bigger than the Living Bible?
I think if I
Just
had...
because Bono liked it?
I think it has outsold the Living Bible.
No.
But we're sitting here.
Come
I have no
on.
notes. You didn't prep me on this. Who knows?
Welcome to my world.
Okay. So what happened this week? I'll tell you what happened this week. Eugene Peterson, who's now a retired pastor, lives in a log cabin on a lake in Idaho. Is that correct? Yeah. If you didn't see it, because the Message inspired Bono. It's Bono's favorite version of the Bible, and he wanted to meet Eugene Peterson. And there's a beautiful documentary about the two of them that you can find. I think it's on YouTube. YouTube search for Eugene Peterson and Bono, and you'll actually see his little house.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
By the lake. It's quite good. We had the filmmaker on the show whenever that happened. I have other people are so organized, they say, episode 351, you can learn all about it. I have no idea.
Yeah, somebody
Sometime
asked me
in the
a
last
question
5
about
years.
what we said on episode 260, and I was like, we said that? I have no
We've made
recollection.
260 episodes?
Right, exactly.
I didn't even know that.
We're a mess.
So anyway, he was doing an interview with our friend Jonathan Merritt, and was asked, if you were pastoring today and a gay couple in your church who were Christians of good faith asked you to perform their same-sex wedding ceremony, is that something you would do? And Peterson said yes. Now, according to this article, cue much rejoicing from LGBT-affirming Christians. Praise was heaped on Peterson. He'd been so brave. On the traditional side, there was sadness at another leading Christian who many perceived to have taken the easy way out and sided with the culture rather than the Bible. The Gospel Coalition, which takes a traditional view, had asked, should we still read Eugene Peterson in the light of the statements? And then this write-up is from Premier Christianity. It's from our friend Justin Brierley's magazine over in the UK, and says, the fact that this question even needed to be asked is surely troubling. Both sides should be agreed. If the Message was a good translation last week, it's a good translation this week. The opinions of its author don't change the quality of the product. Of course, we should still read him. And then something happened which no one had expected. The careful, cautious, and slow-to-speak pastor released a statement backtracking on his previous comments. The statement read, I affirm a biblical view of marriage, one man to one woman. I affirm a biblical view of everything. That's a nice blanket statement. I affirm a biblical view.
It's a way to get all your bases covered.
Just to be clear.
Everything. And that was published just 24 hours after the initial interview was published, which was very quick. For the world of social media, though, it was slow. And the commentary of this article is simply how quickly people can jump on other people for saying things, and it can get out of control. So you don't do social media anymore.
Well, I follow one person on Twitter.
Me?
I'm sorry, it is not you.
Jesus.
It's Hip Hop Augustine.
Hip Hop Augustine?
Amazing, anonymous person who tweets out these beautiful lines of rap that advance Augustinian Trinitarian theology. It's awesome.
Wow.
It's truly
I've got to check that out.
It's
How
worth
has
following.
the world
That is
lived
the one
this
person
long
I follow.
without that?
I don't know. And I'm completely off Facebook. And so I only heard indirectly about this whole thing, honestly, from a friend who happened to be visiting who is in this whole world.
What did it make you think? What was your first thought? Oh, dear. Was that it? Oh, dear.
I've known Eugene a little bit. I mean, we've been together in different settings over the years. And the last time I saw him, I knew friends who had said he had decided to stop writing publicly and had sort of ended his public work. And so I thought, I really thought he must have felt taken off guard. He's 84. I don't know that I want to be having microphones put in front of me when I'm 84. I'm not sure I want to do that when I'm 49, which is what I am right now. But you did that to me just now.
Thank you very much.
So actually what I thought is, man, he was put on the spot. I wonder how long he had to think about it. And so I was not that surprised the next day. I was surprised it was so quick the next day that he was able to turn around a response. But I wasn't surprised he felt a little taken off guard.
Yeah, the conclusion of the Premier Christianity story says, the problem with the rush to get clicks from controversy and the trial by social media that frequently happens in the aftermath is that everybody is breathlessly rushing to get their opinion heard and rarely actually listening to anyone else. It was telling that when I asked Peterson, because he'd interviewed Eugene Peterson just a couple of weeks before this, how he's spending his retirement, he answered, I listen to people a lot. I do a lot more listening. And then this is Sam Hales writing from London. Perhaps we should follow his example. Peterson, who has faithfully served the church with wisdom, grace, and integrity, has been written off within 24 hours by angry people on both sides of a controversy he didn't ask to be drawn into. Maybe we could all do with a log cabin in the middle of nowhere, preferably without an internet connection.
Which he has never had, by the way. He's never had email. He's never his whole life.
That's pretty
writes. Cool. He writes to people.
And
people write back.
And
if you want
stamps,
to reach in, you write in.
And puts them in the mail, and then they get carried by postal workers?
Apparently this still happens.
It is kind of shocking that it still happens when you think about it.
If you write Eugene Peterson a letter, a guy with a pony will show up at your door and hand you the reply. That's cool.
Well, here's what's interesting. I mean, I do think people did listen to what he said, and I think are having trouble understanding how to think about it.
Yeah.
You know,
because it sounded like he'd changed his position from a traditional
and
position.
so now having said the opposite of what it seemed that he was saying, right?
So you haven't changed your position.
Well, the thing that's confusing as someone that's listening and doesn't know him at all, it is confusing. Well, what did he really mean? Does it mean privately that he feels one way, but if he's forced to act publicly, this is what he's going to present to the public? I think we have to be honest and say there are plenty of conversations we have off the mic before and after this show.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That we would never have, on the show.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So there is public and private, ways of thinking about things. Is that what we're dealing with here?
So the cynical would say, his books are published by Lifeway, the largest Christian bookshop chain in the U.S., and they threatened to pull Peterson's books if he no longer endorses the traditional position. But I don't think anyone.
I cannot be that cynical about Eugene Peterson. But I honestly don't.
Now, if that happened to you,
I'd be
you've still
recanting whatever it takes. You've
still got kids to put through college.
Think about how fast that response was turned around. I think he was blindsided by the publication of his remarks. This happens so often. You're in potentially a pretty long interview. Towards the end, the journalist asks a really tough question.
Yeah.
You fumble around. We don't know. I haven't seen audio of that interview, so we have a transcript that the reporter has presented. But think about how fast he had to respond. It wasn't time for there to be threats about, we're going to pull your book.
That's true.
He doesn't know about social media, honestly.
Right.
There's this firestorm happening.
The letter from Lifeway was still a week out.
So I really think the many authors you could question the financial motive.
Yeah.
That's just not the case for Eugene Peterson, whatever the motive is.
Okay. Is this going to just happen more and more? Because it seems like there's a band of progressive Christians that are saying, join us, and kind of trying to pick, yay, we got another one, yay, we got another one.
It's going to happen to every person in public life who speaks as a Christian, that you'll need to declare yourself unequivocally.
Yeah.
And the thing is, pastors who live with the complexities of people, and I think this is part of why Eugene Peterson had a hard time answering, by his own account and his own piece that he wrote, is that pastors know how complex these things are, and they have all kinds of reasons to have a different and more nuanced conversation with an individual than they necessarily can sum up in a single yes/no answer.
That's going to get tweeted.
Nonetheless, you're going to be asked to declare yourself, so you might as well really sort out what you believe, believe it confidently, stand for it, and offer it as good news as you can.
I think there's just that fear of getting Rob Belled over the head, where John Piper says goodbye, and then everyone else says he's dead to us. I think there's a large audience for whom Rob became much more salient at that moment. Yeah,
he's so
mostly Oprah.
Well, that's a pretty large audience that you get now to reach if you're with your message.
Okay.
But can I just say one thing?
Yes, you can.
I think the lesson here for me is that as individuals, we have a responsibility to be more thoughtful and not as reactive when we are faced with something like this. I do think that we tend to all of a sudden, when someone that we have looked up to or thought about in one way says something that we don't agree with, we all of a sudden want to think, oh no, and throw him out. But I do think that we need to take the whole thing in context, and we need to be thoughtful, and we need to ask questions before we rush on down the road.
Before we speak? We need to listen before we speak? That's not biblical.
And particularly on social media, obviously, but I do think that we should be encouraging personal responsibility and thoughtful dialogue.
All right. Well, then that's what we'll do.
That is right.
How do we go? Okay,
I don't
never
know.
mind.
We can model that.
Next
that
story.
It would make for a more boring podcast.
I know. If we think before we speak, you can't do media. There's no time for thinking.
Well, you do a remarkable job with those closing songs.
Well, I take a few notes during the show. Young American men are choosing video games over work in staggering numbers.
Oh, shocker.
Now, this story, this is serious. This is not funny, Christian.
Okay.
This is not funny.
I know it's not funny. It's tragic, but it's really seriously old news.
New research but this is new research.
Okay.
New research has found a surprising culprit for the serious decline in working hours among young American men over the last 15 years. Video games. The decline of young men's working rate has been steady and substantial over nearly 2 decades. Okay, we've got stats. You like stats. You're a stat guy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The stats almost always show you what you knew anyway, but yes, and this is one of those cases.
As of 2016, 15% of men between 21 and 30 were not working or in school. Neither working.
How many percent? What was the percent?
15% of men between 21 and 30.
Okay.
Okay.
One in 8, roughly.
In 2000, it was half that, 8%. So 8% in 2000, 15% in 2015 or 2016. A research team, including faculty from Princeton and the University of Chicago, now argues that innovations in gaming, recreational computing, and not, say, lower demand for less skilled workers explain as much as 79% of the difference in working rates between younger and older men. Okay, 67% of non-working young men now live with a parent or close relative, compared to only 46% of the same group in 2000, suggesting that many are relying on family to support them long term. They average, non-working young men average 520 hours a year on their computers. 60% of that is spent on gaming. But the paper...
It's only 6 hours a week. That sounds low.
No, it's
average 20 hours, 10 hours a week.
That's like 1 hour a day.
And then 60%, 6 hours.
Yeah,
that sounds very low to me.
Sounds very low to me,
some other parents take their computers away.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the reading of the news.
That's okay. Don't interpret the data while I'm throwing it at you. But the paper further cites survey data showing that these men reported increased happiness overall despite their reduced circumstances.
Well, of course.
So they live with their parents, they don't have jobs, but they're happier than the same age men were 15 years ago. Suggesting that advances in gaming are making imaginary worlds more enjoyable than the real one.
You know what? Look, let me just stop you right there. What? I will tell you what's enjoyable. Okay. It is stressful to be an adult.
Yeah.
And it's not, in fact, it's most usually not fun. No, hang on.
Yeah,
it's not fun.
It's not fun.
And it's not necessarily happy all the time. In fact, more often than not, it's stressful, difficult, and it can be a little bit sad.
But it's rewarding.
It is deeply
and meaningful.
To be an adult?
Deeply
not as rewarding as a video game.
and the truth is video games are a placebo, and they give you this euphoric happiness, and it's this distraction from the difficulties of life. So if you don't have to face how you're going to make money, save it, spend it, take care of other people, then of course you're going to be happier.
So I have a question. I think I completely agree with you. And I wonder, why is it that only young men are taking this option?
Oh.
Okay, because everything you said would apply to being a woman as well as a man. So why do you think this difference? As far as I have seen, a bunch of these studies, they all seem to talk about young men and labor force participation. They don't talk about women. Why do you think that is?
That's an interesting question, and I just only have theories, of course.
Right, of course, yeah.
I live in a house with 4 men, so I certainly can speak to that. And I have one daughter. Or I've adopted her. So the difference between the ones that are right in my sphere of influence is that this girl is very socially connected with friends. Yeah. And she'll play little video games on her phone, but for the most part, it's not these big involved
Can I speak in broad gender stereotypes?
You can, for sure.
Please.
Just broadly speaking, the average male is considered to be, by many, more wired to accomplish things and less wired for relationships.
Kind of connection.
Agreed.
They find more meaning about building a bridge and putting your name on it.
Even if it was
Even
a
if
Lego
it destroys,
one or
and it destroys your family and it wipes out indigenous people. Even if it kills everyone within a 100-mile radius, the fact that you built a bridge and it has your name on it is satisfying to the average male. The average female is more likely to say, "Oh no, are you okay?" and stop building the bridge to go help somebody.
Right.
Because there's a relationship there. It's why, Facebook skews female. It's why multi-level marketing skews female, because these things are built on relationships.
Maybe that's what the women are doing instead of actually working. They're all doing multi-level
they're
marketing.
Doing multi-level. They're selling essential oils on Facebook.
That's where the 21 to 30-year-olds have gone in the female side.
Yes. So, okay. Can I get back to my story?
Yes, go ahead.
This isn't from Christianity Today, where they would be concerned about the spiritual implications. This is from Fortune, where they're concerned about the economic implications. That sense of satisfaction with giving up on work might be the paper's scariest finding for those concerned about the health of the U.S. economy. We don't care about how the kids are doing. We care about the economy.
Where are all our workers going?
Yeah, what happened to my working population? The new research points to the possibility that it reflects permanent lifestyle changes for some. Lower labor force participation is a serious headwind for the economy, meaning video games could ultimately cause a permanent downshift in U.S. growth.
I have a couple other things to say. One, I think this can be summed up as a failure to launch. And number two,
if you've seen the video games, there's all sorts of things launching.
Lots of things are launching.
This is a failure to launch in terms of, from the parents.
Yeah.
And I hold the parents responsible.
Oh, well, that's us.
That is us.
You're holding me? No, you can't hold me responsible. This is my show.
I am. And you want me to go back one step farther?
My parents?
We care so much about our children's happiness that we are not going to challenge them and put them into unhappy situations.
Here's for me, I think this is the scary thing about today's video games, that they have learned how to give a sense of meaning and satisfaction through accomplishment.
Totally.
That they didn't 20 years ago, and that you could only get from real life.
Yes.
I grew up playing Pong.
And Frogger.
Yeah. and there was no leveling up. There was no acquiring new skills.
There was leveling up.
I could beat people.
There's leveling up.
Not in Pong.
You can't get a new figure. You can bump up a little bit.
I know. You can't learn to smelt.
You can't wear different clothes.
You can't learn to smelt iron and then make better armor for yourself.
Entire civilization.
Right. So we have 20-year-old guys. Okay, again, broad gender stereotypes, who believe they are accomplished smelters, leather workers, city builders, who have built bridges with their names on them, but have never actually done anything. It seems like we're driving ourselves right into the Matrix, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think what's really distinctive about video games is they create a shallow difficulty to reward curve. So all really valuable experiences start out quite difficult, So this is like learning to play the violin. I won't say the ukulele. I actually think the ukulele would be an example of a shallow
Yes,
curve, right?
thank you.
Not that hard to learn, but you do
All
have to
my
work at
music
learning
is
it.
in the shallow end of the pool.
Yeah, my daughter actually last night was on YouTube learning to play the ukulele. Actually, right?
So and she pulled it off in about half an hour.
Up to your level, basically.
Probably.
That's not hard.
So then the reward, right, is also kind of tops out at a certain level. All really valuable human activities start out actually very difficult and take a long time to master, but then deliver these sort of really everlasting rewards. And that's
riding a bike.
That's riding a bike. It's playing an instrument. It's playing a sport.
Right.
It's loving a person.
It's cooking really well.
And video games give you this way, so they aren't passive in the way that TV is or was, which is just kind of, I sit back, I don't do anything. In the long run, people aren't satisfied with that. They're actually just active enough to seduce you, I think.
Yeah,
and that's what these games are providing. And think about what the alternative for a lot of these guys is work actually that doesn't involve that mastery curve. It's it's relatively undemanding. It's not rewarding. It's not relationally rich. Like really the alternative that they're opting out of for many of them is not that satisfying, honestly.
Right.
But people put up with it because you would provide for your family.
So do America's parents need to have a national day of eviction?
Well, I was
where
going
we
to ask
throw
you,
all these kids out of the
Christian,
basement?
How you think about this? I don't know what ages your sons are, but when they get to that age, are they out?
So my oldest is 27. My youngest is 16.
Right.
And I have to credit my husband with being the hard one in our family. He's from a Navy family, and so he kind of did learn things the hard way.
That's
and
where
he
I went
has
wrong.
been he has been pretty. His dad was hard on him. He's the oldest, and so he's kind of been that way with our sons. And we did actually throw out one child. And he ended up being homeless for 9 months.
Oh, wow.
And he will tell you that was the pivotal moment in his life.
Wow.
He ultimately joined the Army, and now he's, incredibly capable of taking care of himself and has rich, rewarding relationships. But, and we've had to make several hard choices with our children when they were getting sucked into just laziness, complacency, video games, and, know. So...
Wow.
So I know a little bit about this subject.
So you can lead National Eviction Day.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah,
and it goes something like this.
Yeah, it's not pretty, not fun.
1, 2, 3. Hold your breath, everyone. The water's going to be cold.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time to transition to the book, which we've kind of already done. Andy has written a new book. It's called Tech-Wise Family. It's from Baker Books. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it in the back of Andy's station wagon.
No, he can't because he did not bring it today.
Oh, yeah, he didn't bring any. And I had one, but I left it at home. Or
we are not organized
I would
people.
hold it up. Tech-Wise Family seems like it's... would you say that hasn't been the focus of your life, is writing about technology. You write about the church.
Well, it's funny you say that. Actually, I have realized in the last few years, technology is the next big topic I want to be thinking about.
Really?
Probably for the next 10 to 15 years of my life. Maybe the rest of my writing and working life. When I stop giving interviews before I'm 84. Oh, there is a lot more to say. But my friends Dave Kinnaman and Roxanne Stone at Barna Group approached me a couple of years ago now, and they said, we are doing all these surveys. Barna Group is a research group, as you guys know.
And David said, and I'm getting really depressed.
And they said over and over, the topic that comes up is technology and family, especially kids. So they said, would you be interested in collaborating with us? They did a bunch of research for the book. I wrote a more kind of, they did what we call the descriptive work. I did the normative work, like here's how I think it could be and ought to be. And I'm really grateful they kind of hooked me into this. I don't know that I would have started with the family topic, but I actually think it's a great way into it. 60%
of U.S. adults say they never take breaks from social media. 82% of teens, 72% of preteens, and 70% of parents sleep with their phone next to them. What if phone is my pet name for my wife? Does that count?
Phone is the pet name for your wife? That is really bad.
62% of parents say they check their phone first thing in the morning. 60% of parents say they set limits on the amount of time their children can spend using an electronic device.
Limits which their children then routinely break.
Yes. So that's some of the data. What were you trying to accomplish? What are you trying? Because you talk a lot about the importance of family. And you talk a lot about becoming people that have wisdom and courage.
Yeah. Well, that's very close to the heart of it.
Okay, I don't see the connection between, hey, we want to be brave, wise people, and technology, good or bad. What is the connection?
So what I'm trying to do in the book is give us a vision of life together that's powerful enough that we'll be able to make good choices about technology.
Okay.
And I think you should say that one more time, more slowly.
I thought you were going to say faster.
No.
Give us a vision of the good life that we can have together that is a powerful, good enough vision that it will help us make good choices.
Do you mean it's such
technology.
A powerful vision that it's more attractive than the vision technology offers?
Yes, exactly. Thank you for making me clearer. Exactly.
It lures us into that.
Yes.
It's so powerful, we want to walk away from it.
Okay,
So we know how alluring these devices are, I think, primarily for giving us a sense of pleasure and satisfaction, like the video games, and also for solving problems.
Yeah.
So I think that for me, the classic example that I see is the mom who has to take her kids to the grocery store and get them there and back without a total meltdown. And man, if you can hand those kids an iPad or press play on the DVD player hooked into the back seat of the car, you solved your problem. Bang, like done.
Right.
You have a mesmerized child. So technology's promises are very easy to see what they are. But I think that it's all these devices, not just the screens are just the most kind of compelling example, are preventing us from actually developing wisdom and courage, which is what it takes to get to and from the grocery store with a 3-year-old. Like to do that without some help from a device requires a lot of the parent and the child. So if I can just hand them a screen, I solve my problem, but I never become a different kind of person.
There's one other solution that was given to me by a woman in the grocery store when I had my 4 children scrambling around me. She stopped me and said, honey, have you heard of Peapod? I thought,
but again, you're looking for solutions that make it easier.
That's wrong. That's the whole problem with our homes.
Okay, so what's so important about being brave and wise people?
Never mind. This is not even about it. No, the whole problem with our homes is once the home was the place where kids saw their parents modeling difficult things, whether it was the mom getting dinner on the table on time, and I recognize these are stereotypes, but this was what it was like in the pre-technological age. The gender roles were relatively clear. Or you would go out with your dad, and you could be a daughter or a son, and watch him fix the car, right?
Yeah.
And you'd see him doing something difficult, and you often learned new vocabulary as he did that work, right? Like, it's hard. It's not always easy.
Yeah.
But now we have all these devices. I took my daughter out to introduce her to our car because she got her driver's license. Now, what can I show her that I can do with my car? Open up the hood. I'm like, well, Amy, this blue thing, that's the windshield wiper fluid. Like that's all I can do.
Where I end.
This is where I put the gas.
All right, exactly.
Yeah.
So
here's the jack. Oh, we don't even have jacks in our cars a lot of times now.
And this one you plug in. So you don't even go to the gas station. You just plug it into the wall just like all your other devices. Now, what I've gained is this beautiful technological device. What I've lost is showing my child some area of growth in mastery and becoming an adult human being. And now, if we can't even, no disrespect to that lady in the grocery store, but if we can't even figure out how to get our kids to and from the grocery store, and we have to press a button to get our groceries. Yeah. I don't mind grocery delivery, but now I'm missing all these chances to do something with my kids and with my family.
Mm-hmm. Yell at them.
Have you ever taken 4 children at the same time to the grocery store?
I never had 4.
Hey, Christian, it's not just about the grocery store, okay? It's not just, so you say, and it was encouraging to hear you say this, you say we don't have to become completely Amish.
Right.
But then you say, but we probably need to be more Amish than you think.
More Amish than you think. Because the logic of this difficulty avoiding power of technology is so strong.
Yeah.
And the choices we have to make, I think, are going to be more and more radical to say, our family is different, and we want something different in our relationships. We want our kids to develop skills that they wouldn't develop any other way. So that's what my part of the book is about. And then the Barna research is about how we totally are not doing this, and we're completely capitulating.
Yeah.
Well, here's a concern I have, and I see this. I have a very dear friend who has refused to embrace email or a phone or any technology whatsoever.
Right.
And, her kids were raised that way, and they have very difficult times integrating with society at all. And they're not Amish. They live in Wheaton.
Right, sure.
But it's been difficult for her. Yeah. And it's also very difficult for the kids. And I've talked to the adult kids who have had difficulty functioning because of that. So where's the middle ground with that?
So you're saying they need more technology?
There's got to be some middle ground because, I deal with this with my own kids. If they're in a public school system or just in life, they are now doing all of their work on Google Classroom. And, you have to be able to function in society with the technology that exists to some degree to be able to function well and get a job and have relationships and communicate with others.
You give a lot of practical advice about how to shape your home.
Yeah.
And the goal is not a tech-free life, right?
Yeah,
that's not your goal.
Not for our family, and that's not what I'm advocating in the book is probably not that absolutist. I just want our lives built around things other than technology. So I don't mind technology being a layer of usefulness on the surface of my family's life, including how we communicate. And I get that when they go to school, in most schools, they'll be introduced to all this stuff. And I will say, it's not that hard to pick up. Like, one of the things, as technology gets better, it gets easier. So you used to have to worry about kids being computer literate because it was sort of non-intuitive.
To learn MS-DOS was not all that obvious.
But an iPad, like a 3-year-old can learn it, an 83-year-old can learn it. It's just not that hard to pick it up at the right time. But we wanted our family's life together, both in space and time, you might say. So like the space of our home to not be built around devices. Those are peripheral. They're at the edges. At the heart of the home are things that ask something of us and that change us in some way. And
for example.
Like Uncle Lou?
So...
Hey kids, come and get me some stuff. Is that what you're...
Well, If you have to have Uncle Lou, he will change you. So I don't know if that's all bad. In our living room, there was and is no TV. In fact, you can't see. If you walk into our home, it's a small, open floor plan, small house. Walk into the first floor, you would have a hard time spotting anything technological.
No lights?
I would count, so the lights, the refrigerator, the microwave, you'd see that stuff.
Okay.
And then if you look hard, I actually list in the book, there's a bunch of other things you could find. But what you'll mostly see, you'll see a grand piano, you'll see a string quartet's worth of instruments, so that's the musical thing. You'll see a craft table in front of the window with good north-facing light, with all these craft supplies, usually a mess when the kids were little, or you'll see tons of books, you'll see a fireplace, you'll see a kitchen.
Chickens? Will I see chickens?
I'm open to chickens, but we have not actually done
gone that
chickens.
far yet.
And they wouldn't be in our living room. What we wanted our kids to grow up with was this built environment around them that said, you can make something.
Yeah.
Rather than
so it's
you
more
can push a
about
button
creating than consuming.
Exactly.
That seems to be a big.
That's a good way to put
big
it.
That's
thing.
exactly what.
So what's the this is like the first thing you answer in your book, which I think is really interesting, and I was kind of embarrassed that I hadn't thought about it all that much. What's the purpose of a family?
Yeah. Well, I realized I was writing this book about family. I had to figure out really what was at stake in technology, right? I didn't want to just jump into a bunch of lists of things to try or not try or do or not do.
Right.
So here's my conclusion from thinking about it, what I say in the book. I think what family is about is forming us as persons. The family is where you learn to be a person. I mean, you are a person no matter what, but person is something you both are by virtue of being born in the image of God, and something you have to become.
A well-cultivated person.
A cultivated person, exactly. And it is something, like actually people who really, the very rare case of children who grew up without human parents. There are kids who, through either terrible neglect or whatever, are not raised by human beings. They just don't fully become what we would see as a well-integrated, cultivated human person. And how does that happen? This is the other part of what family is for. We become persons, I think, largely through encountering resistance and difficulty in our relationships with each other, in the world we encounter, learning to cook, learning to play an instrument, learning to speak a language even, certainly learning to read a language has its moments of great difficulty. And what technology does is it says, we can take that difficulty away. Mm-hmm. But the more difficulty you remove from your life, the less you're actually becoming something as you encounter that resistance with others to help you.
Right.
And that's what we're missing out on, as we all have our screens that kind of provide us this little drip, drip, drip of easy, relatively low difficulty response.
Speaking of, that sort of resistance or difficulty, you made a statement in there that I found intriguing, which is boredom is often good. What do you mean by that?
Right.
Boredom is like it's our only remaining sin in America. We've gotten rid of all the other deadly sins, and now
thou shalt not be bored.
Not be bored at any time.
Wow.
And I never have to again because I have the whole world in my pocket to entertain me.
I step into an elevator for 3 floors, and I can barely resist the incredible urge to pull this thing out and just de-bore myself right there for 20 seconds?
Okay.
Right?
30 years ago, you go to a theme park. You have to, and theme parks are fun, but you got to wait in line. So it's a busy day. Yeah. You're with 200 people in a switchback line, and they're just they're bored out of their minds. They kind of talk, and they end up talking. They end up playing little games. But go today. And it's 200 people staring at a phone as they wind around these lines.
What a glorious picture of humanity.
That's interesting.
Really.
Yeah. So
here's the really deep thing, I think, although, I don't know, see what you think. I think all creativity is on the other side of boredom. So all creativity happens on the other side of that blank space where you're not being entertained.
So you're saying that God made us because he got bored.
The Father, Son, and Spirit were like, we've been together for a long time now.
Is it still just the 3 of us? I've had about enough. We all order the same things when we go to Applebee's. What is the point? Boom. Okay, so maybe other than God.
For us human beings. But I'm going to take your ridiculous joke and raise you and say Genesis 1:1 says, when the Lord God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, which is boring.
Boring.
And the Spirit was hovering over the face of the deep.
Yeah.
So boredom and contemplation are very close.
Okay.
And what is that hovering? There is not this instant activity to solve the problem of formlessness and voidness.
Yeah.
Instead, there's this willingness to hold yourself there and contemplate what's missing before you act.
Okay.
That only happens when we're willing to be bored. And this is true whether you're writing a book or any kind of creativity, right?
Yeah.
And I think when we short circuit that, we actually become much less creative and much less engaged with other people, actually.
Yeah.
And we become people who can't bear boredom, but that then means we never get to whatever would be on the other side of that. It's very related to this thing I talk about later in the book, which we have blown way past in this conversation, which is the idea of the 7-minute mark in conversations.
Yeah.
Sherry Turkle studies how we're interacting with each other in this digital age. She teaches at MIT. And she has this theory that she's actually tested in the lab, that when you sit down with someone you know a little bit, after about 7 minutes, you run out of obvious things to talk about, right? So the small talk is sort of exhausted. And she says, at that moment, someone in the conversation has to take a risk of some kind. I could ask you a question I don't know the answer to, or I could disclose something, whatever. What she's found in the lab is that when people have phones with them, someone always picks up their phone before the 7-minute mark.
Wow.
And that gives everyone permission to keep the conversation shallow. rather than taking that move deeper.
Yeah.
To me,
That's
it's very
interesting.
connected. Like that moment when I wonder, is this conversation just going to end, is actually the moment when the conversation could really start. Or I can just decide, that sounds risky.
but
I think I have a message.
That's the uncomfortable part, and we don't like that.
That's interesting.
And I have an app to avoid that. You know, there's an app that will fake a phone call to you 5 minutes after you push the button on the app so you can get out of a conversation you don't want to be in.
You know what I just thought of as you were saying that? This weekend, I had a few minutes and I just felt like Herrick Lake was calling my name, and I just felt pulled there.
Herrick Lake?
Herrick Lake.
That's a local lake for all of you that don't live within 2 miles of us.
And I was just driving by, so I just pulled off and I just kind of sat there. And I was trying to figure out why it, I felt compelled to go. And I sat there and I watched this dragonfly that just kept flying in a figure eight right in front of me almost the whole time. And I did wonder about dragonflies and what were they for, and why are they important, and what is it doing? And then
You found curiosity.
And then I looked at this, the people, kayaking in the lake and just how beautiful it was. And it's true, I think, that when we allow ourselves that space to just question and wonder and relax, I began realizing like the creative beauty of the Lord. And I walked away from that. It was really literally only 15 minutes. Yeah. I walked away from that feeling refreshed and like I had, like touched my Creator, and that He was just loving me. Giving me that moment just to love on me and send me back into my family to make dinner. Wow. And so I do think that we use our phones to fill that time. And if we, like you said, we embrace that boredomness, we would discover other stuff.
Yes, there's stuff out there. I don't know, and I know exactly I think I know what you're describing, that even just 15 minutes is enough. 15 minutes of contemplation.
It stayed with me.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever felt that after 15 minutes of just scrolling through things on my phone. Like, I'm so refreshed now and rejuvenated. I'm really ready to engage my family. That is not how I feel when I indulge that boredom-reducing device.
Right. Wow. You have in the book, again, the book is called The TechWise Family. You have in the book 10 tech-wise commitments, basically suggestions, ideas for making a more tech-wise family, which include things like ways to create a low-tech living space, how to keep technology from disrupting the rhythm of work and rest. And you think we've kind of lost both of how to really focus on work and then how to really, really rest, as opposed to leisure. Yeah, define the difference between rest and leisure.
Well, rest is the glad contemplation of work that's been done well, ideally, I think. Leisure is diversion or entertainment that actually requires someone else to work. Mm-hmm. So when I'm enjoying leisure, like I'm watching a game on TV, I'm relaxing, but someone else is actually working really hard to create that. Yeah. Whereas true rest, which is this core biblical idea of Sabbath, the whole community has worked hard together and then gets to stop. Okay. And leisure is usually something I purchase or something that is a kind of overflow of affluence rather than a real result of good work. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I hadn't thought about that before. I'm afraid to read your book. I was so worried people would have that feeling, honestly. And I'll tell you why. It's because I am afraid that it will make me feel so guilty and bad. I know. I'm hitting your, but I'm allowing you the space to tell me why I shouldn't feel that way. So I thought about this so much as I was writing this book, and I did not want people to feel like even an ounce of legalism in it. So one thing I did is at the end of every one of these 10 commitments chapters, or all 9 of the 10, there's this section called Crouch Family Reality Check, which is where I'm like, okay, here's the beautiful vision that I just gave you, but here's how it's actually been for our family. And I try to just disclose very honestly sometimes in the book just how, hey, our family has totally fallen short of all of these things. So these 10 commitments are not the 10 commandments. They're not rules. They're just a vision of how life could be. And then I just tried to write the rest of the book in a way that would be open and inviting rather than, I'm not writing this book to tell you or to tell myself you're doing things wrong. It's just to say, what kind of life do we want? The good thing is people have read it, mostly have said they feel it didn't make them feel more guilty, which is so much what I was praying for.
Well, and honestly, as I'm sitting here listening to you say that, what I'm probably feeling is a healthy dose of conviction, which is probably a good thing, and the balance would be, not taking it too far.
How can parents keep their kids' early years screen-free when schools have become so enamored with technology? Why should spouses have each other's passwords? And parents, total access to kids' devices. Do you have total access to your kids' devices now that they're the ages they are?
So they're 17 and 20. I mean, my son's device is a long way from home now, so I mean, he's an adult. Yes, my daughter, yes.
You still do?
Not my 27-year-old, but 21 down.
And then this is fun. Why is singing together so important? What the heck does that have to do with technology?
You sound like you're a musical family if you have all those instruments.
We are. And this was one chapter I worried about a little bit. Not every family's musical. I will say, though, every family in almost the history of human beings used to sing together.
Yeah.
I mean, this was part of every culture until we got recorded music 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you look
And then we found out how bad we were. Wow. Compared to that.
Well, there are complaints.
I shouldn't be singing.
And you read 19th century diaries, there's a lot of complaints about, cousin Anna or whatever playing the piano very badly. So everybody knew it wasn't great.
Okay.
People
but
still made
did music
together.
Yeah.
And we have just completely lost this. So the kind of focus of that chapter is, why not at least find something analogous? I think singing, it's hard to beat singing, but find something you can do together.
We sing to the radio in our kitchen and dance.
Well, I think that's awesome.
It accomplishes the purpose.
We sing musicals.
Yeah, that's a good one.
On road trips.
Oh, amazing.
You did Hamilton recently.
Yeah, we did Hamilton. We do, our favorites are the Pirates of Penzance and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
That's a great idea.
For road trip singing. Okay, this is awesome. We got to wrap it up. Andy Crouch, the book is what?
I have one more question.
Oh, come on.
Okay, I don't have to ask it, but
ahead,
it's kind of an important one.
Now
I mentioned it to you early, so this is a big subject, so you'll just have to give us a little bit of it.
30 seconds.
In your book, you talk about how the problem of porn is what most parents are worried about when they think about technology and how to protect their kids from it. And we think our first line of defense is, just to cut everything off. Restriction. Thank you. You have a different solution.
I do.
Can you explain that?
I do, because you will never be able to cut off access. You filter all you like. 62% of kids in our study have received a pornographic image from one of their friends. Like, you can't filter that stuff. So you should be worried. A, you should be worried. B, you can't filter it. You actually have to build a life that's better enough than what porn offers, and that's relational enough that you have a fighting chance of the whole family, not just the kids, having the life we're meant for. So that's why I put the chapter on pornography late in the book, because I actually think you have to do a bunch of other things as a family to have a fighting chance of making better choices. And Luther said, you can't prevent the birds from circling overhead, but you can stop them from building a nest in your hair. And so we can't prevent porn from being in the air, but we can prevent it from taking over our family lives. And that's what the whole book, in a way, is about, is the bigger picture.
Did Luther use filtering software? Or
I think he did not use enough filtering, judging from his letters and preserved correspondence.
Salty language. All right. Thanks, Andy. Again, the book is The TechWise Family. Go check it out. We can't ignore this. I mean, it's the soup we're steeping in. We have to do something. So let me try to wrap this up in a song. I've been sitting here with Andy Crouch. He just pulled a new book right out of his pouch, and having read some, I say he's no slouch, and there's something we can learn, because there really isn't anything worse than avoiding the stuff that will form us as persons. Even if we're incredibly bored, we're still growing closer to our Lord, because he made us, apparently because he too was bored. According to Andy, he said that. I'm quoting him directly. You can tweet that to Eugene Peterson. So, if you want to learn to really joyfully play, all you have to do is chuck your phone away and read Andy's book by the end of the day, and it'll save your family from the horrible situation that 17% of young boys are in, where they now value their video games more than work. Thanks for being here, Andy Crouch.
You got everything in.
Yeah! Woo-hoo! Did I mention Eugene Peterson in the song?
Yes, you did.
Yeah! Score! Okay, thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks, Andy, for being on the show.
Such a pleasure.
Come back next time you're in town, after your next book is written, to follow up on I Was Wrong. This is really hard. Give them their phones back. And we will see you guys next week. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
The Phil Vischer Podcast is produced by Phil Vischer Enterprises and recorded live at Jellyfish Lab Studios. This episode was edited by Jason Rugg and was fact-checked by absolutely no one. For more information, go to philvischer.com.